back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawaki, your host. Today we're going to be covering the 2008 Radiohead record, In Rainbows. The end of the 90s would see Radiohead's most commercially successful release with OK Computer, and after a run of several more records in the early 2000s, albums like Kid A and Hail to the Thief, which in their own right are brilliant, but would not see the same success as OK Computer, in 2008 Radiohead came back with In Rainbows. The track listing here is as follows. For side 1 of the record we have 15 Step, Body Snatchers, Nude, Weird Fishes, Arpeggi, and All I Need for track 5. Side 2 of the record is Faust Arp, Reckoner, House of Cards, Jigsaw Falling into Place, and Videotape. We're going to give this a spin and come back to you on the flip side. Alrighty guys, so we are back with side 1 of the record. First track on the album is 15 Step. A really nice glitched out drum beat starts off this song for a really nice swinging beat, accompanied by Thom Yorke's falsetto vocals. This leads into an excellent guitar part that flows along with the beat of the song, sort of like water flowing downstream with very little resistance. It is just a smooth track. The vocals at parts of the track are almost haunting in certain segments, but are kind of muted brilliantly by this track's glitched out production. It's just a really great kickoff to the album, because a lot of the tracks on this album are pretty mellow, and this one is a little bit more up-tempo and it kind of helps pace things out a little bit. Really great, not quite pumped up track, but just something to really help with the pacing of this whole record. And as a whole, it is very dancey in some ways in this kind of muted kind of way. It's a fantastic album opener. Track 2 is Body Snatchers. A really great overdriven bass line carries the intro of this track into this groovy blend of like modern electronic production with like 70s style writing sensibilities for the overall mood of this song. This track has another really great smooth flow with some dissonant kind of accent guitars over this nice fuzz heavy bass. Towards the end of this track, we get this really brilliant emotive vocal delivery from Thom Yorke that really builds on the theatrics of this song for a fantastic reprise, solo, and close for this track. Track 3 is Nude. The start of this song is really haunting with these reverse recordings of like strings and percussions where, you know, like the cymbal kind of hits and it's the reverse thing. Used in a lot of like 80s production for like synth pops type stuff, but it's been reused, that technique, over the years in various different kinds of things, especially when you're trying to get this sort of reverby, like ethereal kind of effect on some of these tracks, and I think Radiohead uses it here really nicely. This all kind of comes together for one of the slowest and most personal feeling tracks on the record. If you're a fan of Thom Yorke's style of singing, then you will really love this song, as his vocals here are really the main focus of the track. They kind of subdue a lot of like the background instruments and stuff and kind of just like let Thom Yorke croon over the top of all of this, and it comes off really nicely. The guitars on this track, where they are, kind of gently cradle Thom Yorke's crooning vocals, and they kind of float them lightly through the track as well. This is a song that I could picture listening to for like a nice sunset drive or like a view overlooking a city at night. It's just a really pretty track and one of my favorites on the album. It's just so moody and swingy, and it's just like really has just kind of a vibe going for it that's kind of hard to like capture in a lot of senses. I think Radiohead definitely did a great job of kind of capturing this like moody, melancholy kind of feel. It's really excellent. Track 4 is Weird Fishes, Arpeggi, or Arpeggi, I'm not quite sure on that. I think it's just a shortening of arpeggios. We get this almost like breakbeat, like drum beat here on this thing with some like light reverb guitars over this track, playing some more very light arpeggios in the background. Once again, production here is like audio butter. This track is just smooth and cool and keeps in theme with the rest of the album thus far. The reprieves in this song sort of strip back most of the mix and like most of the parts to kind of just give some breathing room for a sort of a duet between Thom Yorke's vocals and these arpeggio guitar parts, where it's just these very light reverbed out parts with Thom Yorke crooning over top of them, and it's kind of like they're dancing with one another. All that ends up going back to a build on the drums and like lots of ambient noises for the background in this track for a great brewing mood for the end of the track here. The last track on side 1 is All I Need. A slow drum beat and keyboard kind of pull this song along with like some really nice ambient kind of reverb and noise padding out the back of the mix of this track, giving a really great moody setting for Thom Yorke's lilting vocals. The tension really builds on the song with like these introductions of like these pianos and like chime kind of parts. I'm not quite sure what instrument they're using. It kind of almost sounds like a xylophone or something, but I feel like it could just be a plug-in for a keyboard. And they help kind of carry along this melody, which Thom Yorke just harmonizes with brilliantly in between like these like sort of dissonant like lower bass growls and like the delivery of Thom Yorke's vocals kind of harmonizing off of these very light touchy bells and whistles here and there. Really excellent track. So that's side 1 of the record. We're going to go back around for side 2 and we will come back to you on the flip side. Alright, so we are back with side 2 of the record. Track 6 on the album is Faust Arp, a short count off into like this really nice floaty acoustic intro accompanied by a string section. Sets off this like immediately very beautiful tone for this song. It's one of the shorter tracks on the record. I wish it was a little bit longer, but you got like Tom York kind of half singing this sort of poetry into the beat of the guitar, which flows really, really nicely. Like I said, wish it was a little bit longer, but you kind of get almost like a continuation into the next track on this thing, which is track 7, Reckoner. This really nice subdued drum and bass intro starts this song off, and like I said, it's almost like a continuation of the last track, but more thematically than tonally. But you do get a lot of like these same kind of string instrument parts and segments here and there. This track has some of Tom York's best vocal performances on the entire record over this almost orchestral song that like this just kind of builds this guitar. The guitar kind of just holds tempo for most of the song here. It's mostly used as an accent piece to kind of let the orchestral segments kind of have room to breathe. This continues up into this like segment where they kind of strip back all of the entire mix to just this orchestral segment absolutely shining through the mix to pull it all together to this really nice smooth end of this song. Once again, you get really, really smooth production on this thing. Like this is one of like probably the best produced albums I've ever heard in this kind of genre. I mean, you get a lot of like smooth production in like a lot of rap nowadays, but I feel like rock it kind of shies away from like this very squeaky clean production, except in kind of like the prog rock genre with, you know, artists like Steven Wilson kind of sort of carrying that kind of torch of very, very clean production. But I feel like it's almost missed in a lot of like these kinds of genres. And I know this isn't quite really alternative rock and it would probably be classified more like art rock, but it makes sense here and it sounds really brilliant. Track 8 on the album is House of Cards. This song follows a lot of the same writing template for Nude off of the first half of the album, with a focus on Tom York's vocal delivery. It is a little bit groovier tempo-wise, but is mostly like kind of a sweet little love song with this ambient section that builds over a very, very simple beat, all of which just really works brilliantly here. There's just not too much complicated going on. It's just really simple track that is just being pulled along by its simplicity and just how effective the writing is on this track. Track 9 is Jigsaw Falling Into Place. I'd say this track and Body Snatchers are really the only true like alternative rock songs on the album, as they're a lot more straightforward. However, this song has plenty to offer in the like interesting avenues that it takes in this track, with a lot of like really nice sonic corridors that this thing goes into, just like kind of, you know, bring it all together. And there's nice twists and turns, but it holds together in just like the very nice rock format that they're going for, with the guitar and drums really grooving through the verses and the choruses on this thing, changing up really nicely, and Tom's vocals remaining incredibly varied on this song. Track 10, the final track on the record, is Videotape, a really fantastic piano track with Tom York really belting out some of the saddest lyrics on the entire record. Finishes off the album with this nice building ambient piece, pulling along these like sort of uneasy off-tempo drums in the back with this like constant piano that matches the vocals for this really beautiful finishing track. My favorite tracks on this record are probably Nude off of side 1, and then almost all of side 2 with Faust Arp, Reckoner, and Jigsaw Falling Into Place. Just really nailing this record is like, in my mind, kind of a modern classic. Pretty much all of the Radiohead stuff that I've listened to over the past few years, which is kind of like when I started getting into it, it's kind of just like nailed whatever vibe I'm like looking for whenever I go to like listen to it. So I've, you know, lately been pretty impressed with the tones that these guys go for. And if you haven't listened to this album, give it a try. A lot of people, like I said, you know, you either love Radiohead or you hate them, but honestly, I think if you hate Radiohead, you should really give them a chance because this album is really goddamn good. You should check out this album, and you should probably also check out Hail to the Thief. Kid A is amazing as well. Amnesiac is really good. I think those are like outtakes from either Kid A or OK Computer. OK Computer, obviously a great record too. Just listen to some of the records these guys have put out and just tell me they're bad. Like, other than that, leave what you think of this album in the comments below. Leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.